And I think we're live. Hey, you guys, welcome back to Canlis Community College. My name is Mark Canlis. We are in week 5, I think, of doing this. We're in month 9 of a pandemic. And look, tonight I'm here with Pete Nordstrom. I'm so excited about this. When we first talked about Canlis Community College, one of the early ideas was, okay, hold on a second. Brian and I don't really know what we're doing about what if we brought in these sort of like industry experts from our town and sort of highlighted people who we look up to? And I'm just totally candid with you. I'm like a little bit gushing and slightly nervous to be with you because you guys are role models to us. You're Nordstrom, we're Canlis, and we feel like we're like the little sibling to you, and we look up to you in like so many ways. And so first of all, Mr. Nordstrom, thank you for being here. I so appreciate it. You guys have been, you're here with your wife. I'll tell that story. You guys have been fans of this place, and we have felt loved on by you. And so thank you for being here tonight.
Well, thanks, Mark. I mean, to tell the story, I mean, we're sitting literally in the place where my wife and I got married. We got married in this room.
Like right here. Yeah. This is sacred ground.
I mean, it was kind of a night like this, but it was like a super magical, I mean, I guess everyone says that about their own wedding, but
it's okay to say.
Honestly,
yeah, you can go there.
It could not have been better. I mean, it was a nice, intimate setting. We went downstairs. We all had dinner. It was a lot of fun. We talk about it all the time. It'd be fun to go back and relive that. So anyway, we love you guys. We're big fans. So.
It's 95% Brandy and 5% Canlis. Just FYI. Yeah, if we're going back and telling this story accurately,
all of it was good.
So welcome to Canlis Community College. We, as we've been saying, we don't know anything about being a community college. So Brian and I have been taking on the role of learner, and you are our adjunct professor tonight. And what I want to get into I have so many questions for you. I want to get into a few of them, and then for those watching, of course, if you have any questions, Brian's over there on the chat. Feel free to type them in, and we'll try to get to as many as we can in the time that we have. If you watched. By the way, I don't know. I know we missed this. I know you were going to do this with your kids, but if you missed aerobics with the Pacific Northwest Ballet this morning, just go back. So we've been doing this. This set has changed. It was an aerobics class earlier today. And so I want to talk about creativity a little bit. So yes, we're trying to do some things here that are outside of our comfort zone, that are, if I know nothing about community college, I know even less about aerobics. You guys, this is not the first time that your 119-year-old company has been through hard times. And I think if you're a Seattleite and you've waved this flag, which so many people watching have, you guys are champions a little bit in terms of enduring. You've been through wars, you've been through pandemics, you've been through depressions. Running a company like yours, I'm just dying to know what happens around the family table when you're talking about hard times. Like, where does that conversation go? Like, what do you guys fall back on?
Well, if my brother Eric here, he'd probably say the same thing. But we've heard our dad recount several times how difficult things were, not necessarily in his generation, but from his memory as a kid, being attached to the business all the way through. And the two that really stick out is World War II. And he talked about rationing shoes. There were only so many shoes, and people lined up for them, and all that. Talked about that. And then there was the early '70s when there was the big economic depression here, where Boeing, they laid off a bunch of people. There was an issue.
They were through hard times.
Yeah, I mean, they were such the dominant employer here that they're really, if Boeing got sick, the whole town got sick. And we were so reliant on the economy of the city in those days that my dad talks about that too. So those are the things that jump to my mind, and we've got our own stories to tell now.
So is he kind of like boys? Is there sort of like the hand on the shoulder? Like what happens? Like, I mean, so Brian and I had a talking. It wasn't a talking to, Brian, was it? But Dad came in yesterday.
It was a talking to.
It wasn't a talking to, and
I feel like we haven't had one of those in a while.
And it was kind of like he gives us tons of freedom.
Like, what's up with this community college thing?
No. It wasn't what's up, but it was a little bit like, hey, love the creative pivots, love the work you're doing for the community and fundraising. Also, you can't lose money forever, and so just want to know if you're gonna become a profitable business. And so Dad gives us so much leeway, and I just want to praise him publicly. But at some point, that father figure comes in, or your actual father figure comes in. At some point, it's your board, or it's your, and they sort of say, "Hey, how you doing? Can you give us the assurance?" And you start to pull this wisdom from them. Does your dad do that? Is there any sort of like, what happens there? Like, I just want to know, like, hey, are you guys good, or is it?
The thing I really admire about him, now I'm a parent myself and I can appreciate it more, is that he's never really tried to be our boss. I mean, he just wants to be our dad. Yeah. So what you get is all this unconditional support and love, and we actually don't talk about work a lot. Okay. He's interested in it, and we can, but we talk a lot more about Husky basketball or something. It's just he wants to be our dad, and I think what Eric and I would say about that is just what we always feel is this unconditional support, and that you've got someone that's really on your side, and it's nice when it's also the biggest shareholder too. So that's good.
That doesn't hurt.
No.
But go there for a second. Is that so many people watching are involved in family businesses or small businesses? Is that a secret to the way that you guys do this, in a certain sense that, like, he's a dad first, shareholder and former employee, and and former runner of Nordstrom second? Like, is that a piece of advice that you would give to anyone in those same sort of family business shoes? Like, how do you guys do that? How do you, and with your own children, I'm curious, like, what that might look like.
Well, in my generation, my time being around, we've always been a public company. So every time someone says something to me, well, it's a family business, and your family owns the business, my first reaction is that's not true.
My family, there's zillion shareholders that,
Yeah, there are.
Yeah.
I mean, our family does not own the majority of the stock, and hasn't for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
So the fact is that there's a real objectivity to how we run our business, and an accountability that I think is healthy for our business. It's not about, your dad thinks you're awesome, so therefore you're awesome. I mean, we answer to all these shareholders and investors and what have you, and that keeps you very grounded, and I think keenly aware that you've got a responsibility that goes way beyond any sense of entitlement. Sure. I think just to be here and hang out and have good times. It's not. I think we feel the gravity of the size of the company. I'd say it in a positive way.
So let's just address, like, the really hard thing right now. Restaurants have been, let's see, what's the right word? Our business has been devastated. It's probably a fair word to use without being using hyperbole. Retail, also in a very hard situation. You're a publicly traded company. Where do you take your hope from, your inspiration from, your creativity from? Like, how, what does that look like and feel like as a leader in the retail industry? What do you hear from your peers? Like, I'm talking to chefs and other restaurant owners all the time. We're all just sort of, is that a retail thing? Do you call up heads of major, like, hey, Bob, Jane, like, how, like you guys do that? Or is that like,
interestingly, there really isn't a lot of camaraderie amongst
Can we change
people
that?
in the retail
Can we invite
space.
them in? Should we? Is that a weakness of the system, or is that okay? Like,
I think I actually like the camaraderie, and one of the things that's happened with COVID upon us, it has forced more of those conversations than I've ever really had.
Really?
And since I've been around for a long time, I've got a lot of these relationships, and most of it's because I've sat next to people at, like, a fashion show or something, start talking about stuff. And particularly in those first 2 months of COVID, when everyone's trying to figure out what the heck's going on, it was nice to have some perspective and some context. So I talked to the CEO of Saks, and I talked to the former CEO Neiman Marcus, and I talked to the CEO of Bloomingdale's, and I talked to other people in our industry, and I found that to be really helpful. And while we compete with each other, what is the
collective word in that sense? Obviously, these are hard times if you're in the retail business, but what is sort of the?
It was pretty in those moments. It was pretty tactical. Like, are you guys going to close your stores, or are you making people wear masks, or what are you doing about the dressing room? If someone tries on clothes, do you let someone else try it, or do you go dry clean it?
Right.
It was all super tactical.
Right.
But I guess I'm a real believer that it's good to be curious and it's good to have those relationships. And we compete with people, but there's a lot to be gained, I think, just by extending yourself and being curious and talking to people and listening. And you learn a lot. You ask questions. People tell you things, so that's helpful.
Well, so one of our principal motivations, looking at the fall season, we're coming out of, we were talking about the Crab Shack earlier, the smoke rolls in. We're like, oh my gosh, COVID's not going away. Smoke won't go away. What do we do here? We said, okay, all these kids are going back to school. Your kids, my kids, the city's kids. What if we went back to school? What if we were able to publicly be curious? And what would it look like if we focused on this next period? It's not lost on me that last night and tonight, we're in this time of the election. And what does it look like if we stay curious? What does it look like if our hearts are softened and we have a mindset of being learners? Is that at all, I would love to know the values of, so at Canlis, that's something that we're focusing on. It's a direction that I want to grow my company. It's a direction that I want to grow myself. I'm wondering in this period, is curiosity one of those? What are the things at Nordstrom what are those values and those things that in this time of heightened pressure and intensity and uncertainty and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, we've heard that a million times. What do you guys lean back on? What do you fall back on? Said a different way, in which ways are you growing in this period, if curiosity is one of mine?
I think what happens is it really tests the fabric kind of your company in cultural kinds of ways. And because it's hard for everybody. And you talk about non-essential businesses, which ours is and apparently yours is.
Fancy clothes.
There's people in retailing that are doing fabulously well, but there's really not much that we sell that people need. We sell things people want. And so I don't take offense to it if someone says we're a non-essential business. We're not selling paper towels and
right. And
hand sanitizer.
Hand sanitizer.
It's anyway, so where was I going with this?
In terms of the direction that that you're growing, or the direction that you're taking the company.
Well, so it's the cultural stuff that really matters. And I think if you're going to hold people tight to the mission and make them feel like they're doing something that's worthy and worthwhile in a time when the results don't have anything to show for that, I think it's got to be about the stuff, all those kind of qualitative things that make people feel good about either why they shop with us or why they work here. And so we talk a lot about those things. And curiosity is an element of that, but there's also, we had a meeting yesterday, our leadership group, and we talked a fair amount about things like trust and grace and things like that, and particularly in these stressful and difficult times, how we can be there for each other.
Yeah.
And,
internal as a company.
Internal.
First, caring for one another.
Right.
And then you guys you're kind of the customer service kings. You sort of put that sort of genre on the map. I don't know when that was that sort of you maybe blossomed into that.
My generation gets no credit for that. I think my dad's generation are the ones that took the idea of customer service and actually made it a rallying cry and a thing, and a differentiator. I
think of it as one of the very cool things. Seattle has brought the world coffee and airplanes and software, and in so many ways, I don't take entire credit for it, but in so many ways, customer service. Thank you to. Is it gone? This is what everyone wants to know. Is it I get 100 interview questions of this exact one? Is it gone? Customer service, which I am in the business of, so I have personal vested interest in this question. High touch, high relationship. At a table here, you got 20 people all up in your business, standing one table across, bringing food and forks and knives and everything. In your guys' world, what I love about your store is that it's a human experience, right? And so I'm wow, these people, I've told this story to you, I've told everyone, my last pair of shoes I was so uncertain about. I tried to get them at the rack, I couldn't find them, I didn't want to pay full price. I'm just going to be honest with you right now.
You should have called me, I would have helped you navigate that situation.
Do you have a way in? So then I go over across the street, right, past the shoe shining guys who I love, and I'm just curious, do you shine your own or do you use those?
I use those guys.
You do? Okay.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Right? They're insane.
They're
They've been
great.
down there forever. And then I go in and I'm oh my gosh, they're so expensive. I understand. I'm also a luxury product. And this woman comes over, and I'm like, thank you. Like, I feel safer spending this amount of money. I've owned these shoes for 8 years now. I've worn them so many nights on this floor. Okay, your business, my business is one about relationship and one about customer service. Does it come back? Is it gone forever? I don't believe either of those extremes are true, but can you take us there? Like,
Yeah, I think the big thing about service is that how it's defined has changed and will continue to change and probably always has. And I mean, the story I have for you about that is, for years and years we had this reputation around giving great service. And anytime there was some kind of poll taken or survey or list in a magazine, it was like top customer service, Nordstrom, Ritz-Carlton Hotels, Hertz Rent-A-Car, it's just all these, and like, wow, that feels great. And this is now, gosh, maybe it's 20 years ago. We're still on these lists, but we notice we're like fourth or sixth. These aren't things that you apply for. They're reputational things, right? But it's like there's Netflix, there's Amazon, there's, a bunch of
the way we
bunch of companies that,
service.
To our way of defining service, had nothing to do with service. They were more transactional in nature.
Sure.
But the mistake, what we learned through that process is it's not up to us to define what good service is. It's up to the customer to define it. And increasingly, customers define good service by convenience. And everything that we did or defined good service around tended to be a very high-touch experience. Like, you came in,
right?
You've got this guy, this salesperson, and he talked you through all the stuff, and he gave you advice about what to wear it with, and like you came back and saw him because it didn't fit right. I mean, you ended up having a relationship, right? And then that worked from there. And we still do that all the time. But we also do, before COVID hit, we were doing about a third of our business online, and now it's over half of our business online. And so that's a little bit of a different story. I mean, you can have some personalization there for sure, but more of it's about how to take the friction out of a shopping experience. And so I think Amazon, in a lot of ways, has defined what good service is relative to convenience. They got transparency.
It's just
they
so
got
easy.
speed.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Yeah.
No friction. One click buy.
Is that a threat
you
to
think
you?
about that.
Is it an opportunity? I mean, you guys are like the.
It's a threat and an opportunity.
Okay.
Yes.
Are those equal? Are they like? You know what I'm saying? Like, because here's the thing. I don't not anytime soon see Canlis moving into the Amazon realm. Like, I don't have the ability to get super slick. Yes, we've been packing up dinners into boxes and sending them to people's homes, so maybe that's a version of that. But in general, it's not a business model that really works for us. We'd like to get back to doing what we do. Do you do both? Like what is the move there? Like,
we do both. I think ultimately we believe the most successful retailers of the future are the ones that do both. I think if you only do one, at our scale, or the other, like if you're just Amazon, and as you know, their movement's been, we got to start having some physical stores. And they look different than a store like ours, but they've got physical stores. What you see with anyone that's got a direct-to-customer brand that starts off as purely an online thing, they ultimately feel the need to have some physical connection as well. So what we do is we take our stores, and then we take the online part of it, and all the work that we do is how can you bring those things together in a seamless way so customers can access whatever they want, whenever they want, and whatever that moment suits them. I mean, you may have a very high-touch thing you need to go to a store and actually get, touch and feel the merchandise and work with a person and do all this stuff. But you also probably have those times like, I've got to buy a Christmas gift for my mother-in-law. I don't want to spend more than, maybe you want to spend a lot for your mother-in-law. I don't want to spend more than $75, and I just need to get this thing online.
If my mother-in-law's watching, it's like $375. I'm just saying, does your mother-in-law $75?
And my mother-in-law, like no limit. But yes, but those everyone has those times, and it doesn't mean you're one or the other. You're both. And our job is to pivot seamlessly and allow it all to work together, kind of, because we have this foundation that allows it to happen without everyone.
So I feel the same way. Fine dining is a little bit the same way, which is everyone's like, well, what is great fine dining? I'm like, you tell me. Like literally, if I write that script, it's a little self-serving. But if I am attuned to this person's running in to grab a quick gift from mother-in-law, wants straight up the quickest, easiest transaction as possible, This person is shopping with her girlfriend. They're just out to have a coffee and be relational, and like those are two so different. And we get the same thing in the restaurant, which is like, this person wants to engage with the staff and be a part of a restaurant, and this couple over here, they just need some space and time to themselves.
Right.
And so I think of this as like, if we're not listening to the guest at the door or on the phone before they get to the door, who are we really serving? We're serving ourselves unless we're completely attenuated kind of to who they are. Okay, so Brian just sent me a note. It's like, we got so many questions. But before we get to so many questions, I have a couple of quick ones.
You know what, I got to tell you though really quickly, you guys do a remarkable job with service. You really do. And I think in so many ways you set the gold standard. And one of the ways that I think that's reflected, and you know this, when we have people that are in town, whether they're vendors or, if we have a kind of work thing that we're doing that's celebrating people or whoever it is, guests, we most often come here because I think it's so reflective to your point about Seattle and this kind of service culture, and it feels great to be a part of this experience because you guys are so in tune to your point about once someone's coming to the door, you're on it. I mean, you guys are remarkable.
I'm gonna go there because my head is a little bit wrapped up in the emotions of an election, and probably a lot of people are. I'll just be like on the nose and say it. Our hope at the restaurant is that we would stay turned toward the stranger, is literally how I think of this. Turned toward the other, the person that is different from us, the person who looks and acts and believes and votes differently than us. And I feel like that is hospitality. And I think what I'm loving about sitting with you tonight when would this ever happen? I wouldn't wish COVID on anyone, but I wouldn't want to take away an opportunity to talk about sort of the real issues at hand. And to me, regardless, I don't know who you voted for, regardless of who the people voted for, regardless of who is a president, I wonder if as a country we can remember that that isn't the thing. The thing is, how do we remember that you're human and I'm human? How do we remember that we're in the same boat together? How do we remember how alike we are in spite of the fact that we probably have differences? And that to me is a message for my own heart. It's a message inside of our home with our children. It's a message in our company. It's the way that we try to serve. It's why it feels different maybe in this restaurant, is I honestly believe it's my job to make space for someone who's different than me. And I don't just mean carve out a table, give them a seat and charge them for dinner. I mean, like, honestly consider maybe I have something to learn from them. And I believe that to be part of the magic of your guys' service. I believe it to be in the DNA of this city as a city that is open to thinking that way. And okay, hold on a second. I'm distracted. Brian, I'm getting there. 2 quick questions. This is like personal. I got to get personal.
This was really good. I'm enjoying this.
Hold on a second.
Keep going.
Holes in your socks. I just have to ask this. When and Brandy's here, like, when I'm just curious, like, everyone thinks like a king, and we have like macaroni and cheese and hot dogs at home. I'm sure they think do you have holes in your socks? Like, right now, we go through how often?
Not these socks.
No, but just how often at home? Is it a thing? Like, do you struggle from what the rest of us sort of? How often do you get? You just like.
Well, I mean,
Right now, I go through your sock drawer. How many socks have holes in them?
Not
Just
many.
be honest.
Not that many, but you
Okay.
know my family well enough, and I think my dad, who's got such kind of a grounded, practical approach. So things, I could always have new clothes and stuff, but a big part of what's on my mind is, have I gotten the wear out of this that I need
Yes.
to? Have I gotten the use out of
Then
this
you
before
feel
I
okay
can just buy
letting
more
go.
things?
See, I feel like you should wear it until the holes.
I do. I
Okay.
do tend to do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Piece of clothing
Okay.
that you currently wear in public and probably should have let go of years ago. I know there's one. Come on,
This
like,
is
I
probably
just
a better
want to.
question for my wife.
Is there something,
my
Brandy, can you
self-awareness
just
might
weigh
not
on
be that
this?
good.
I'm sure there's one. You own a clothing, not own, but you run a clothing company. Is this a high school T-shirt? Like, what is it? Like, is it a pair of pants that's not trimmed properly?
Well,
you know it's there.
I'm so old that the high school or college T-shirts out the door. I mean, that.
Okay. You're not that old.
But
okay.
I'm old enough that would be a stretch.
Cool. I have like 20 at home, and I'm
off
usually
the
like 6
top of
years
my
old.
head, I cannot think of something.
Okay. All right.
But I definitely have this practical sense about value and use, and like it's like anything. I'm not a collector of things.
Yeah.
Like I think we've talked about this even like relative to wine or something. I like wine, and I have wine at my house, but I'm not a collector.
Like a zillion bottles sitting in
I
the
want
basement,
I want to drink it. I mean, I want enough that I have choices and all that stuff, but I don't want to have thousands of bottles where it's like a trophy.
It's there to be
that's not a
opened and
practical thing
enjoyed.
for me.
The guy who makes the wine at this at Domaine of the Romani Conti, right? So famous winemaker said to our family in his basement, he said, "Just never forget this one thing for me. Wine has no value in the bottle. It only gains its value when it's opened and shared among friends." This guy could sell his wine for anything he wanted, right?
Yeah.
Our bottles on our list are like thousands of dollars, and he's literally reminding us. He's like, it literally was made to be opened and enjoyed with other people. If you stash it, if you hoard it, you're robbing it of its intrinsic value.
So I
Brian,
got
take me there.
So and that's a real. I got a neighbor. We had drinks with them recently, and he was serving really nice wine. Just like, here, you want a glass of wine? I'm like, geez, what?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, no way. Yeah.
Wow. And he says, he goes, I've lived long enough, and I like wine, and I've done well. He goes, but there's three kinds of wine. There's the everyday drinker, there's kind of the weekend wine, and there's the anniversary wine. He goes, I've just kind of moved to the place where why wouldn't I just drink the anniversary wine all the time?
Every day.
No regrets.
I love
and
it.
I go, good on you. That's awesome.
If you're going to make a mistake, open it early and drink it now. That's all right. Now we're on wine. But okay, what are you getting in the chat? Like, what's going on there?
I was wondering if Mr. Nordstrom could talk about the employee handbook, how they got to the one line, use good judgment in all situations.
Use good judgment in all situations.
Yeah,
This is in your employee handbook?
Is that an important line in the book?
no, that was the book. And we
Well,
didn't
that's-
actually literally for years and years and years, that was the deal. Now, it wasn't that we didn't have procedural things people had to know, like here's how you
Sure.
punch out, and here's how you ring up something on the register, and here's how your benefits
But I
work.
show
and
up
stuff.
on day one, and that's the advice
That's
you
what we
give
gave
me.
to people is use good judgment in all situations. And I think we
Who
still
came
talk
up
about
with
it, but it's not a literal book anymore. But I'm really glad you brought that up because I think it's a poignant reminder of kind of the essence of why we do what we do, and again the clarity of purpose.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you gave someone first of all, as you well know, every night you're open for business, something's going to come up that doesn't quite fit a book of rules.
Every night, let's just call it
Like
every 10
something's
minutes.
going to come up.
Yes.
Like I got to use some judgment here. Because this is not.
Well, no,
There's not a
here's what I
rule
love
for
about it.
this.
Can I just say, it's human.
Yeah.
So some people all the time is like, well, how do you train good service? I'm like, oh my gosh, you got to be alive and present.
Yes.
Right? Brene Brown's like present over perfect. Like,
Yes.
like present to say like, there is no script for this, but I see the person in front of me. I'm reacting to it. I'm a human. And here's my person-to-person thing, and I think what I love about that axiom or rule, or I don't know what you call it, but it allows your employees to be human and to not be following the company script, which
The only thing we had to
kills
do
us when we go into a store.
Yeah, the only thing we had to do over time to amend that was, I think it used to be say use your good judgment. Sometimes people's good judgment or the way they rationalize the decision is not good judgment. So we
took your out.
So use good judgment.
This
and then
should
that
be
gives us some
commonly
latitude.
understood to be good judgment.
Well, it gives us some latitude to address the situation.
Okay, yeah.
And
Because
perhaps
otherwise
have
you
it be
got
a
some kid
learning
who's like,
moment.
look, this is my good judgment.
Yeah.
You're like, no, man.
I decided to just comp their dinner because I
No,
just, you know.
thank you for bringing that up because there's a few
that's good.
servers I'm going to
That
have
was
you talk
my
to.
good
Yeah.
judgment.
Okay, next question. This one from the great food writer and food critic Nancy Leeson has asked, how can you afford to take back so many no questions asked returns?
Yeah, no, how does that happen?
Like,
Come on, that
what
must
is
have
the
been
business strategy here?
killing you guys. Did you ever return a tire? Like,
Yes.
there's so much. You did that, so that's true. And so, can you just take us there? Like,
You
what-
want me to tell the entire story?
Yes.
And then I'll tell you about.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in the 70s, this is my dad's generation was involved. They bought some stores in Alaska called the Great Commercial Company, and they had a store in Kenai and one in Fairbanks.
These are
and
retail
one in
stores,
Anchorage.
or-
They were retail stores, but they were
okay.
general merchandisers. They sold sleeping bags and shoes and gas tanks and
Yeah.
tires. So.
Naturally.
So we had bought these stores, and this is a time when the whole oil boom was happening up there, and there was this real big influx of money and people, a lot of activity in Alaska. And at that time, we weren't a national company. We were a Northwest company. So we had to go, the rationalization was, let's go places where people know who we are.
Okay.
Let's not go open a store in Missouri.
Sure.
I mean, I think Alaska or
Stay in your
Oregon
hood.
or,
Yeah.
okay. So what happens was that the Northern Commercial Company sold tires. And so some guy comes in there, I don't know, a month or two after we owned these stores and had taken it over and then had our stuff in there. And this was in Fairbanks. And he goes, I don't know what's going on in here now, but I bought these tires here, and they're not working out for me. And the guy said, okay, how much did you pay for them? Well, these tires were $75, whatever. He goes, okay. So he just did it.
It just made sense.
Well, it makes sense in that context.
Yeah.
Now, if someone came to me today and said, I want you to return these tires,
You know, you're being taken
well,
advantage
it's like,
of.
well, that,
yeah.
but
yeah.
I mean, the guy is just kind of like, I don't know. And even then, it was pretty
was
remarkable.
relationally driven between the two of
The
them.
interesting story is that guy is I think, if
No,
not
still
still
with you.
current, if not still a current employee, like a very recently former employee of Alaska Airlines.
No way.
Yeah, and I found that out because our one of our board members is the CEO of Alaska, and we talked about this because I mean the guy that did that.
He's kind of like legend. This
Yes,
guy. I feel like I want him on
totally.
a T-shirt. Is that weird?
I don't
or
even know
something?
his
Is that
name, but
appropriation?
the
Like,
guy-
I feel like he's like the forefather of great service. Everyone tells this story.
But you think about that. Whatever that costs us, let's say that costs us $100. I don't know.
Yeah.
How much value do you think we got out of that over the years? They talk about that at Harvard Business School.
Yeah.
You're asking me this now.
Yeah.
Most every interview I've ever had at any kind of scale.
I've had
they
people
ask
at
me this.
tables, but when Nordstrom returns tires, I'm like, okay, cool, I get it. Like I've heard it,
But
but like,
that and that whole kind of spirit of intent, I think, opens the door for people to think more broadly about something like a return policy. So the question is, how do we afford to do it? It's because we do more sales volume than others. These practices that we have enables us to do more volume.
okay.
We do a lot of business because we have customer-friendly policies. We do a better job with wallet share with that customer, loyalty and what have you. That's always been the premise. And then the other part is there's no amount of money you could apply to marketing stuff like that, and no one would ever believe
Because
it,
it's
right?
revealing the character of your company. The
Well,
minute you
but
advertise, I don't believe
It lives
you.
because it's true. It lives because we haven't talked about it. It lives because people talk about this.
Yeah.
And so the value that we get reputationally about what is Nordstrom, and almost always the first thing out of people's mouth, it's either shoes or it's about service.
Yeah.
We couldn't have bought that
Yeah.
branding opportunity. We have to actually earn that over time. So whatever it costs us to return a pair of tires was totally worth
I mean,
it.
have you sent him a pair of tires? I feel like is there a thank you gift? Like, it feels like every Christmas
guy-
he could
the
get like an
Alaska
extra
Airlines
tire
guy?
on his tree or something. I don't know.
Well, we
but
still
like-
have stores where you walk in the employee entrance. There's a tire hanging up there on the walls. Is what's your tire story? So we still try to encourage people to think about like one of the things we talk about, and this happens in the store all the time. You could see it is when people come in with like an old ratty bag, and they can walk in. You can see the salespeople
You're like,
kind of
here
like
it comes. Yeah, watch out for this person.
And so what we've talked about is embrace the brown box or embrace the bag. And you'll see it like when we open a brand new store, oftentimes the first person walking in, someone's got like a ratty old bag and a 5-year-old pair of shoes. And it's like when they learn to kind of embrace that because it makes like a fabled thing, it totally makes that worth it.
It releases, it frees up. We get these gift certificates sometimes that, you're probably aware, but Washington State had this kind of funny gift certificate law, and they used to take them back if people didn't redeem them, and we had to pay the state. And so, anyway, you get these gift certificates like 20, 30, 40 years old, right? And
For real?
And you know how old they are because like dinner for two at Canlis, like $45. We're like, whoa, it's an old one because it hasn't cost that for a while. And so I was like, what do we do with this? It's clearly null and void, but it's like this person has held on to this ratty piece of paper for 30 years. You bet we're going to honor that. So, please don't bring all your old gift certificates. But like,
It's funny you say that. I'm thinking someone's
like-
going to roll in some tires. Well,
like-
I've heard Pete talk
but no,
about
it's the
this.
feeling of like, man, you've been waiting that long. Wow, how can we not honor that? And so I don't know. I feel like anytime you get to let your company, even as leaders, anytime we get to be seen, actually seen for who we are, and we're not perfect, right? There's so much wrong with us. But then it's like when your staff are like, cool, I knew you weren't perfect, and now you're willing to admit it. And I think if the restaurant can do that, it's like, we're not perfect. So if you can see us for our imperfections, then somehow we become, somehow the relationship starts to work. And if all of service, if all of hospitality, if the thing that we're doing is relationship, well, then that's...
But don't you think about when you kind of talk about the humanity part of it, I mean, isn't what that all is about is spirit of intent? I mean, no one's really going to do things perfectly, but I think if people feel like you're authentically doing the best you can, they're accepting of some mistakes.
Yeah.
It's just as long as you're accountable for it,
Yeah.
and you're doing your best.
Yes.
And we say we're sorry a lot because we mess up plenty, but most people accept that apology and like thanks, and then we try to find a way to move on from that.
Do you did the whole, this is a tradition in your family, you start from the bottom and work your way. We're dishwashers, you guys start selling shoes, is that kind of
in the stockroom, yeah.
And I'm just going to say, like, I kind of think that you get the better deal. Like, the soccer room sounds like more fun than the dishwashers. It's steamy, it's hot back there, you get your hands in other people's salads and stuff. But whatever, we don't have to compare, it's cool. But anyway, so do you have a story, do you remember growing up and being in a situation where your mettle a little bit was tested, either your patience,
Yeah,
Was
I'll
there
give you a stockroom story. So I'm 13. I'm young, and I'm working the shoe stock room, and the buyer manager person said, hey, one of our vendors downstairs with his cases and bring them up, because in those days they would come travel to us and show us their case of shoes, and we would pick.
A big old
And
valise or
can you
something.
go down the freight elevator and help them bring it up? I'm like, okay. Well, the vendor had no idea who I was. And clearly I was
Which is kind of cool,
young.
right?
Well,
Yeah.
I was young
Okay.
and probably not. And he was ticked because I may have taken a wrong turn or pressed the wrong button
That this
on the
kid
elevator.
shows up to help.
It's like, God, and so the guy's like mad at me, and it was upsetting. But I mean, I remember the experience, and I came and I told. He may have actually even let it show in front of the manager, and the manager let the guy have it. I think he pretty much threw him out because the guy was openly really rude to me.
Yeah.
And I was a kid, and that meant a lot to me because it showed that we weren't going to be tolerant of bad behavior. We're not going to rationalize that. And someone on this team had my back, and not because my name was Pete Nordstrom, although I'm
just
sure
'cause
that
it wasn't
didn't
right.
hurt.
It didn't hurt.
But you don't do that.
Well, we talk about
Treat
this
our
in customer
employees that
service
way.
all the time. How far do you take customer service? I get asked that all the time, and I feel like when the guest or the customer or the client, whoever it is still relationally forward, I'll be there. I won't be the one.
When you say relationally forward,
I
what's that
mean, like, say you got a complaint, or say you got this guy. Like, I feel like if they're still interested in relationship, if they really want dinner to go well, there's one thing to stand up and complain and make a scene in the restaurant and throw your wine. All of this has happened, right? It's another thing to just want to make a scene just to hurt the restaurant and walk out. That's one thing, but it's one thing to kind of just say, my feelings are hurt. This isn't working for me, right? And so any time that the customer is still like, Canlis, can you? I'm in. Are you in? Then I'm in. Like, I'll go all the way there. And sometimes the staff is like, holy cow. But the minute that it is abusive, or the minute that really the person is just aiming to hurt, just aiming to be mean, I don't know, where do you draw the line on how far do you go? A company famous for customer service, how far do you go? Like, how do you draw that line?
Well, we wouldn't tolerate anyone being disrespectful. I mean, in an inflammatory way to any of our people. I'm not. That's game over.
Yeah.
We're done. We also wouldn't. Like, this happens quite often. Someone will say, "I want you to compensate me for my bad experience or the time that this has taken for me to get this situation created," and we don't do that.
Yeah.
We don't. A lot of people give gift cards. They throw gift cards at a way of trying to appease people.
That's
Our
kinda
thing
dirty
is.
to me.
Well, our thing is, like, I don't know how to put the correct value on our time. So if I say to you, okay, here's a $50 gift card, you may say, I am completely insulted that you think my time's only worth $50. So I said, what we've just learned over the years is that is such a slippery slope. What we have to do is just be able to apologize. But then you'll get some people that'll say, well, I'm never going to shop with you again, and I've cut my credit card, and I want you to give me a gift card. And to your point, why would we give you a gift card if you're telling us you will never shop with us again? The answer is no.
Yeah.
And, I think that's really hard for people to understand. Eric and I get this all the time, but stuff, I guess I would classify that as like blatant opportunism. It really isn't about
you can see
someone trying to repair a situation.
I think that's what I'm talking about. Like, there really isn't the relationship. It fully is.
It's like, I'm seeing if I can get $45 out of this guy.
Yeah.
And, that's what I want to do. And like, I'm not doing that. Yeah. So, look, I don't know if that's the perfect way to go. It's just, in our experience, that I think is the right way to go.
I have a question about working with Eric, but go ahead, Brian. I know you have one too.
You have a question about working with your brother and how wonderful it is?
Yeah, it couldn't be better.
Okay, as soon as the camera stopped rolling, you and I could just talk about working with your brother.
On the chat tonight, there's so much love for Nordstrom.
Oh, cool.
In the community, people are calling out the managers they've worked for and stories, and so just thank
119 years of awesomeness, you guys, in our own
it's
town.
super cool.
So,
Seattle is like a 1 degree of separation.
I have a
from people
ton
who work for us.
of good questions. I have a bunch of rapid fire questions. Maybe we do it.
Okay, let's go.
Okay.
But a bigger question, and it's for both of you. But don't go too long on it, because you can go for a while.
I'm sorry. I try to keep it short. I don't know.
Customer service is one thing face to face, but as the world is becoming more digital, as social media and your online store is becoming half of your business, you said, how does customer service, this interaction, translate into social media? How do you translate it onto Twitter and Instagram? How do you have those types of interactions when it's not face to face anymore, but it's digital? How do you separate yourself?
Well, I think you could still do it in a personal way, because those relationships usually work back to being attached to a person. Like there's a story of one of our guys, one of our people who works in Pittsburgh, when COVID came and we had to downsize, we had to lay people off, and this guy was a manager, and we're gonna have a manager job for anymore, but we'd like you to stay on the team. And he talks about, because I had a family home, I got to figure out how to do this. There's no one coming in the store. I got to figure out how to make a living. And he goes, I'm gonna do it all like through Instagram. I'm gonna kind of put it out there because I got a pretty good following. I'm gonna do this.
Like himself.
I'm not gonna tell you the number, but he sold like literally hundreds of thousands of dollars of shoes like in 3 months, just because he figured out how to tap into
serving people that he knew and just saying, hey.
Well, he doesn't know them. And he said, by 3 best customers, I think it was, I've never met.
No way.
And he's in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So he goes, I got customers in LA and New York and stuff. He goes, but I post all these shoes. We have a really good offer there, a lot of designer goods. And so
is he available, by the way?
Yeah, if you go to I think on Instagram, I think it's Nordstrom Men's. Is it Nordstrom Men's Designer or Men's Designer?
Okay. Did you find him?
Anyway, he's there.
We put it in the class notes. We take class notes and we send it to people afterwards. So get it to me afterwards.
Because I got it.
Yeah.
Anyway, this guy has figured out how to do it. So I think the point is, he has figured out how to create personalization, high touch, good service in a different medium. And that requires creativity, as you talk for. And it's super inspiring. It's like, wow, he's not a guy, like you think about, always the example is a car lot. A bunch of guys standing there waiting for someone to come on the car lot, then they're all over them.
Yeah.
Our thing is like, you got to create your own business. You can't just stand here and wait for a bunch of traffic to come, because it might not come. And we have a lot of people over the years that were really successful because they're hustlers. It was a busy place. If you hustled, you did well. And those days, at least now, are kind of over. If you can't find a way to create your own business, we'll give you the platform, the inventory, all that stuff to have your own business.
Yeah.
Those people do well.
Brian and I got challenged years ago, 10, 15 years ago, that said, Canlis is relevant, you guys don't do social media. And we were wrestling with social media because we were like, gosh, it doesn't feel like us as a brand. It's sort of like, it's like kind of like shouting in a relationship. So anyway, we had to wrestle with this, and we came to the idea that anytime we put something out there, we want it to give more than it takes. Like literally, that's kind of, I don't know if we're winning, by the way, but like that's kind of been the mantra is, if we're going to post something on Instagram, is it asking if social or if anything out there is a relationship between us and them, and generally am I taking in this relationship more than I'm giving, or am I giving? And it sounds like this guy is literally seeding value out there, like creating value, giving, and of course it catches fire, because any relationship that takes more than it gives is one that you don't want to be in, and we all spend time with those people who are so other-centered, and so, you know what I'm saying? And so I think of, I don't know, maybe that's why it's successful.
Well,
Maybe
again,
it's just an
I think that's
awesome
really
salesman,
more an issue of creativity and just business in these times, and you guys have demonstrated this maybe as well as anybody, requires some scrappiness. I mean, there's not necessarily a playbook for all this stuff. You better have some agility and some creativity and some scrappiness, or it's going to be hard.
Yeah, it's street ball. Yeah, it's for sure. It's not. All right, Brian, what else? We got like 5 minutes before we
got 5 minutes. Okay, here we go. Ready?
Okay.
Rapid fire.
Let's
Rapid
do it.
fire.
Let's do it.
Can I just do yes and no answers? Is that what you're saying?
Maybe. A lot of people, their grandparents or friends called it Uncle Nordies growing up. Do you know where that came from?
No, and actually I've never really...
More than one person is like, oh yeah.
I don't know about the Uncle Nordies.
You don't have an uncle that you call Nordy.
No.
That's
There
so
was never
fun.
a stuffed
Maybe you
animal.
learned something.
There was never like a bear at Christmas that
Okay.
was Uncle Nordy.
I don't know about Uncle
Recently
Nordies.
Can we
noticed-
create the Uncle Nordy tradition right now? I think we can just write this into the script.
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay, maybe later after
I'm
the
gonna-
rapid
yeah,
fire.
that's
Recently noticed that all of your brands have banned fur. Do you think others are going to follow suit? How has the industry or the customer responded to your stance on fur?
Well, yeah, we've made the declaration that I think as of fall of 21, I think it is, so it's maybe a year from now or less, that we won't have any fur that we sell, or exotic skins. We weren't the first to do that. So I'm not sure we deserve a ton of credit for breaking a lot of ground. I mean, part of it is just following the zeitgeist of what's going on with customers and trying to be relevant. And
That's humble of you. Also, there's a bunch of people out there who see a one path and choose not to go there, and
but
it's
I mean,
pretty cool
but,
that you guys
but
are
it's
going
one
there.
of it's actually a really liberating thing about what we do is we follow kind of the customer sentiment, and you could really see where things are going. There's been a strong anti-fur movement for a long time.
Yeah.
But we're always like, look, if we got customers that want to buy this from us, that expect to buy it from us, and maybe they don't buy a lot of it in Seattle, but in Chicago, they buy a lot
I know,
of
and
it.
they all come here and
And
wear
we've
their
got
coats
this
in here and hang them up.
decentralized kind of way of doing things. We want to serve customers in Chicago for their needs in Chicago, or whatever the example might be. But over time, that whole idea, and it's almost part of like the sustainability idea, which is, it's gone way more than just kind of an interesting special interest group. It's a theme that cuts across a lot of customers, and it actually influences buying decisions. And the other thing I'd say about it is, you've got to be a brand at a certain point that stands for something, or you stand for nothing. And if you can't listen to the customers and make a decision about that, and have a point of view about things that feel really important to people, then I think you're missing an opportunity. So we'll see how that all goes. But
Awesome.
So far, everyone's applauded it. I've not had anyone been upset about it.
Okay, I have brought our family for the last 19 years to downtown Nordstrom for Santa.
Yeah.
Are we going to get Santa? Am I going to get 20 years in a row of my family with Santa this year?
I don't think so.
Oof.
Probably not.
Yeah,
Doesn't seem like the right thing.
I mean, you can't. You think about.
Sitting on Santa's lap at the time of COVID seems a little
I've not
close.
actually heard an official declaration of that, but
What does the CDC say about
Could
Santa's
Santa
lap?
I'm
wear
pretty
like,
sure
like a
Santa's not
scuba diver
happening.
helmet?
There might be a virtual Santa opportunity. I'm not
For
sure.
sure, we
but
can't wrap
I
them in
think the
plastic
in-person
wrap.
Santa,
That's not a thing. No. Okay. So maybe not.
I
it
think
it's a
sounds
rain
like.
check.
Lots of conversation on this hot topic. If you have any pull in the fashion community, which you probably do, can you please encourage clothiers to put real pockets in women's clothes?
Wow,
right?
this
There's
is a
there's
great
a lot
request.
of anger around women's clothes and the lack of pockets or the size of pockets and pockets getting no respect.
Pete Nordstrom, you heard it here first. You're going to be the man that puts pockets in women's
Let me
clothes.
just say this based on my experience of selling women's shoes and clothes. Not first of all, not all customers are the same. But what most customers do is they talk about the practical things they might want, but the fact is they're going to put on whatever they're going to put on, and they're going to look at themselves in the mirror. And they go, does this look good? Do I look
Can't
good?
the pocket look good?
Well,
You can
I
hide
think it probably could, but women are way smarter than guys when it comes to understanding fit and how things look on their body. Like I'll use an example. Several years ago when flat front pants and trimmer pants became an idea rather than the big, super busty, like pleated pants. Because a woman wouldn't wear a big pleated pant because they think it makes them look
They were more
big.
aware.
So so
does this mean the new iPhone,
they
which
were
is
uber
smaller,
aware of
is going to
it.
be popular? Because as
I'm
pockets
just
get
saying,
smaller,
I don't think
I
the smaller
Pockets
so
by
much better.
Nordstrom could be your whole new women's department.
I think there's a practical issue there. That's what the handbag's about, maybe. I don't know. I use my sample
I hear
size of
you
whatever
saying-
my
asking
wife.
the
She's
question.
never asked for more pockets. So I don't
Pockets
know.
not yet.
Next question.
Pockets not
yes.
yet. is what I meant.
Favorite memory from a fashion show? Have you ever sat next to somebody really interesting? Have you ever had a crazy
yeah.
fashion show moment? Or a fun one?
And also, is Zoolander real? I gotta say that. Is it fictional? Is it real?
It's kind
Is
of
it-
fictional. But
kind of fictional.
I've sat next to all kinds of crazy people at the fashion shows. You know,
He says they're
I don't know. Paul McCartney or
Oh, that's fun.
All right. Do you remember what he was wearing?
Sting or
Does anyone at a fashion show like look you up and down and kind of judge you
Like,
with their
do you all
eyes?
judge each other? What
Yeah,
are you
is that a
wearing?
thing?
Well, I used to think that was a thing, but what I learned along the way is people care way more about what they look like than what anyone else looks like. So
That is super narcissistic.
But there's,
like
I mean, you know, the Kardashians, they're all at these shows, and
Okay.
over time the shows have become less about retailers doing buying and much more about a social
Okay, so
media
one person
moment.
at
So
the-
it is a full-blown.
Be one
media
person at the
service.
next fashion show that if you sat next to, you would be a little bit like little gaga, a little like freaking out.
Well, the
nervous
Paul
to talk to
McCartney
you.
one kind of.
Paul McCartney got to you. Okay.
Well, I mean, you know, his daughter's a fashion designer, and so you would always see at the Stella McCartney shows, and he's there. I mean, you're
cool.
like you're walking the show, and all of a sudden you're like,
Are you like, what's
You're
his
like, oh,
right
Sue
there.
Pearl, what's up?
and it's Paul McCartney.
Do you like take his jacket and kind of approve?
Okay, next question.
Anyway, but your question was about how do I fit? I don't fit in at all. I mean, you can see if you go to stock.com, these things on the fashion shows, you can see the runway shows, and you can usually see me. I'm in the front, but I'm the big tall guy, like with his feet sticking out there, that looks like he absolutely does not belong, like in any way. So I stick out like a sore throat.
Next question. What are you reading lately? What book have you read that has influenced the way that
Yes,
you do
I
business?
want to know this.
Oh my God.
You've got kids in
What
school.
book
You're running a company. You're in a
guys
pandemic.
are gonna
What's
hate
on your
this.
bedside table right now?
I got a book that's about young women, about my daughter's age, that I was told to read so I could understand my daughter.
How old are your daughters?
My 10-year-old daughter.
Okay.
So that's what's, but I
Is it
don't
called
read a lot
Little
of
Women?
business books. I get so many articles and things all the time that I really don't read a lot of business books. That's going to break some people's hearts. I was an English major in school too, so I read a lot of books, but I don't really read business books. I talk to people.
Okay,
Yeah.
do you have an answer?
I know. I don't read business books. I read classics. I read books that are like
See? There you go.
100 years old.
I'm reading. I'm sure everyone cares my opinion.
I do. What are you reading?
We're reading a book about what it looks like to strip technology from your home. And
cool.
how do you raise non
You let me know how that goes.
Like
I'd like to
non-traditional-
learn how to
What
do
are
that.
you reading? Andy Crouch's.
It's called the Tech Wise Family.
Tech Life. Andy Crouch.
We got to get that book.
Okay.
Awesome author, by the way.
Percent chance you'll ever open a store in Redmond.
Oh, this is a question coming from
A
strong
full-line
Redmond
store.
I
contingency.
mean,
A Nordstrom full-line store, not a rack or something.
no, like, oh yeah, a
Yeah,
Nordstrom.
the full Monty.
Is it ever
Zero.
a market you've looked at?
Zero. So you're saying zero? Come on,
Zero's a
zero.
strong
Come
number.
on, zero.
We're gonna go less than one.
Let's go less than
Well,
one.
we
but
got
he's
we got
saying
a
there's
great
chance.
store in Bellevue.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's
next
not Redmond. You know,
I
it's
got lots of
different.
questions. Next question. What is happening with the Nordstrom locals, and are they on hold?
Actually, we just opened.
Could you define a Nordstrom local? Because
Yes.
I didn't know what that was until.
A Nordstrom local is like a 2,000 square foot storefront that's usually embedded in a neighborhood that's a pretty dense neighborhood. That's a lot of our customers, but it's not super close to a store. The perfect example where those work is in New York, because you have these distinct neighborhoods,
Yeah.
and people, if they live up on the
Yeah.
Upper East
Upper
Side, they would
West,
never go to
Soho.
Soho. That
Yeah,
seems
that's
ridiculous.
not what you do, yeah.
So we're not
These
going to
are
have
like
a
little
bunch
micro
of
Nordstroms.
Well, but we don't sell anything in there. It's a way of extending our services.
Really?
So
There's no
we
product
take
in there.
returns, we do alterations. A stylist could meet you there. Some pay their bill or whatever. I mean, it's meant to be an extension of our services that is embedded and close to where customers are, and they are busy places. So we just opened two. We opened one in Newport Beach California, and in Manhattan Beach in LA.
Is
So
it weird?
I think we'll have to see where that all goes. But for right now, the investment is not super high relatively, and there's a lot of flexibility. You don't lease those things for 30 years. You have a year-to-year lease, and you see how it goes.
I love
Okay,
it.
next question.
Yeah.
Can I get your beautiful gray knit jacket in a woman's 4?
With pockets?
Yes.
Wait, as worn by Pete Nordstrom, do we
Okay.
can we
This is
label
a
what he's
Xenia
wearing?
jacket.
Maybe
They
in the
might-
class
I-
notes
I don't
we
know
can
if
have
they've
that
got-
later.
Next question.
Okay.
I see you've partnered with some Seattle restaurants and chefs in your Manhattan flagship.
Yep.
How's that going? Also,
Right
when
now?
when is the Canlis Nordstrom collab happening? And why hasn't it
Is it
happened
weird
yet?
if we call it Canlis Local? It's
We
just- I don't
we
wanna,
could
you know.
do. I think it'd be cool to do a Canlis thing. No, we opened up. It's been a little over a year now. We opened the tower there in New York, the women's store. I mean, literally within 4 or 5 months, we had to kind of shut it down. So it's back open
Timing
now.
was hard.
But
Timing was hard.
Timing was rough. But
Yep.
we did a restaurant. We partnered with Ethan Stoll, which has done really well, and Tom Douglas helped us on
them both.
concept a couple of restaurants. And those guys, I mean, they're great guys.
They're pretty good, yeah.
And I mean, I like those guys.
We love them. Hello,
And
Tom
we
and Ethan.
thought the
Yeah.
best thing we can do in New York is not try to out New York
Yeah.
with another white tablecloth Italian
Yeah.
restaurant, but to try to bring something that felt authentic in Seattle
I've
to
been
it.
to that store, by the
and it's-
way. I think it's stunning. I think it's like really beautiful. So
Thanks.
congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
It's, and also just like
Sorry.
bold move to go to Manhattan. That's like retail
we had no
central.
idea
So
it'd
I
be
was proud as a
COVID.
Seattleite to be like, kapow, Nordstrom is here. How do you like me now?
Purses do not count as pockets.
or handbags, not purses.
Don't. Nope. A lot of anger.
A lot of anger.
Lot of
on the
friendly
menu.
anger.
I knew I was going to step.
We can take it
step in
back.
it
Lot of
with
friendly
that.
This is the
anger.
season of learning.
We will
How
find
do
a
you,
way to take care of you.
Next question. I'm curious how you manage bad customer service at the half-yearly sale. I've only tried shopping at once, and it seems like the customers are insane. I would prefer to shop
Bad
at full
customers or
price.
bad customer service?
Bad customers.
Big customers.
No, not bad. Great customer service. Like
there's
like
no bad
crazy shoppers.
There's no bad customers, right?
There are no bad customers, but they can sure act poorly.
Well, there can be some unfortunate circumstances. I think it's the same thing. I mean, if people can't be, my dad used to talk about this. There's a test of reasonableness.
Yeah.
That requires some judgment. And if people
Yeah.
are going to be rude or unreasonable or I
you
don't
know
know,
what I would-
but for the most part, particularly when things get really busy, it gets back to that idea of there's an empathy or a grace. You talked about putting yourself in their shoes. They may have a big stressed out situation. And I think we've got to figure out a way to try to turn that around. That's
the
what we
thing.
try to do.
Someone with their emotional wits about them can pretty quickly just see what's going on behind the scenes. And 9 times out of 10 or higher, you can kind of pick that apart and be like, I hear you. You came across rough, aggressive, agitated, but really this is what you need. And I feel like that's...
In our society, people feel the need to really lean into it with hyperbole for someone to hear them. And once you guys,
It's
you
weird,
don't,
it
you
gets
don't have
modeled
to
for
yell
us
or you don't have to.
sometimes on TV,
you
but
don't have to, yeah, I know exactly.
Yeah.
But that is true. And I think if we can
Tone that down.
tone down and just
Yeah.
actually have a conversation, we almost always can find a
I
solution.
feel like saying to people, I woke up this morning really excited to serve a bunch of strangers, and you seem really angry at me. I'm here to help you out.
Do you say that? That's pretty good.
I have actually said that out loud.
That's pretty good.
This is just what I want. Pete Nordstrom, I want to thank you on behalf of Canlis Community College for you and Brandy coming here tonight. What a weird time this is. And also, thank you for enriching what we're doing and supporting Fair Start, which is what's going on, for supporting Canlis in this difficult time. It's not an easy time for the two of you. And also, I just want to acknowledge for everyone out there, thank you for making this such an amazing city. And thank you for being a part of it in the way that you are. And you say that you're not a family business because you got a million investors, but you are. I know that you are. I know many of the family, and I just I feel like what an opportunity just to say thanks. So
Well,
know that we're all in your corner and we're pulling for you, and we're gonna buy clothing somehow when the economy. Now or when the economy turns back on, but we feel endeared to you. We feel like that you're our people, and and you're our store. And so I just want to say that out loud.
You guys are so nice. Look, first of all, I was super flattered to be asked. It's always nice to come here, and I appreciate it. And I've done a fair amount of interviews in my life, and never have I been served a high-quality old-fashioned like that before.
It's still Canlis. We might be closed, but we still know how to make a good drink. So
we sure do.
You guys,
Thank you.
I appreciate you joining us. We're going to do darning your duds and hanging out with materials at Filson shortly in 1 hour.
Filson's great, by the way.
Awesome. Another
good
highlight of the
products.
city.
They're great.
So it's a pleasure. Thanks for joining us. I think that's a wrap. How do you turn the camera off? Is that it? Are we good?